most of today thinking I had so much to say, and now I seem a little tongue-tied, but I can remember a few things that I wanted to say that I've been saving up. So it was nice to talk to Vincent again after such a long time. But I do think he's being a little unprincipled. So, or a loomer to Tucker Carlson, who has been elevated, or should I say, lowered to the status of being the biggest anti-Semite in America. And what did he even say? He said Israel, and everybody, including Jews, think he means Jews. And I really do think Tucker is missing a trick in not taking my position on Jews, which is that they are ultimately the people who will be the fall guy for US foreign policy, because it is now so disastrous, so aggressive, so unpopular. I suppose I'm trying to tell people that when people give you more than you deserve, when they elevate you to a status that you don't feel quite competent to fulfill, you should have a care. We hear about all these stories. Aztecs, I think what they did was they would make somebody become king and then sacrifice them to show how much they revere the gods. Maybe I'm mistaken, but let me just check the story about the Aztecs. Aztecs sacrificed kings. Human sacrifice in Aztec culture. Okay, they didn't sacrifice their own leaders. Poor old Aztecs, they didn't have written records, or maybe Cortez destroyed all their records. I got the impression that some people sacrificed their kings. Were kings ever sacrificed by any human group? Okay, so I did not dream this up. So according to Grave, it says, there is evidence and scholarly debate suggesting that kings or royal figures were ritually sacrificed in several ancient cultures, though the extent and nature of these practices remain contested. Celtic bog kings. Archaeological findings from Ireland, such as well-preserved bog bodies, for example, Old Croghan Man, Cashel Man, suggested that high-status individuals, possibly kings, were ritually executed during times of crisis, such as drought or social upheaval. The gruesome nature of their deaths and the symbolic disfigurement, for example, sliced nipples, support the theory that they were sacrificial kings deposed and killed to restore divine favor. Huh. Well, that's interesting. I mean, I guess it's better than. Is it better than rebellion? Because the modern way would be, well, we don't like our leaders; they're stupid, so we'll get rid of them and replace ourselves. But obviously, they these Celtic bog kings did it in a more polite way, saying, "Well, you're not doing us much good. Perhaps you'd like to go away, but in a sacrificial way. So it's more honourable, isn't it, than having a rebellion against you?" And maybe they thought, well, I guess it's an offer I can't refuse. They could run away, of course, but they might not want to live as an outlaw refugee, and maybe the other tribes around them would know who they were and treat them badly, and they just didn't think there was anywhere they could go. Right, and the next one is Rex Nemorensis, king of the wood. In ancient Roman mythology, the Rex Nemorensis at Aricia was a priest king who ruled only as long as he could defeat challengers in combat. If defeated, he was killed and replaced. Though this may have been a symbolic or mythological role, it reflects a widespread area of the sacrificial king in pre-Christian Europe. So it's kind of like, well, you're the lion king, and you have your harem, and because a harem is a desirable thing to have, the other lions will fight you for it, and I guess eventually you'll get old and tired and lose the fight, and then I guess you're killed. Aztec and Mesoamerican cultures, while not kings in the European sense, Aztec rulers and nobles were often central to ritual sacrifice. The empire's religious system required human blood to sustain the gods, and captured warriors or sacrificial victims are often used in ceremonies involving the sun god Huitzilopochtli. I can't read it. The concept of the dying god and ritual renewal of power aligns with sacrificial themes. Hello, Howard. Okay, you're talking about abortion sacrificed in the name of the matriarchy. To continue, ancient Egyptians and Mesopotamia. Evidence suggests retainer sacrifices in early dynastic Egypt, where servants were buried with pharaohs who served them in the afterlife. Well, I know the first emperor did that sort of thing too. Similarly, in Mesopotamia, servants and officials were sometimes sacrificed upon the death of a ruler, though this practice declined by around 2800 BCE. Scandinavian and Germanic traditions. Norse and early Germanic peoples practiced ritual sacrifice, including human victims. The 10th century chronicler Adam of Bremen described the 9 yearly sacrifice at Uppsala, where humans, animals, and even dogs are hanged in sacred groves. The Sutton Hoo burial site in England also hints at possible royal sacrifice or ritual burial practices. Theoretical frameworks, anthropologist René Girard argued that kings originated as designated sacrificial victims, a scapegoat mechanism to resolve social conflict. This theory links the role of the king to the original collective murder that forms social unity, with kings later evolving into symbolic figures who enforce laws to prevent chaos rather than being killed. Huh. While direct evidence is limited and often debated, the combination of archaeological remains, ancient texts, and mythological traditions strongly suggests that kings or royal figures were indeed sacrificed in certain cultures, especially during periods of crisis or to maintain cosmic and social order. Well, we don't have to ask our ruling classes to sacrifice themselves, do we? We just want them to make way for better rulers. So, well, we're not being unreasonable, are we? And really, what we want is the sacrifice of the current dysfunctional system. And then I just don't look. I am always presenting my case reasonably in a way that I hope is easily understood, even if you haven't been to university and you're not very clever. I mean, it's a difficulty because I'm talking about abstract ideas. I'm not telling you, like so and so is to blame or this and that group. I'm saying the system is failing, and maybe a lot of people have difficulty understanding what I mean by system. They can't see it. They can only see, I don't know, apples and pears and people they hate, and they can only see concrete physical objects, and maybe they're just not able to think in the abstract. And that's why everything I say is falling on deaf ears. That there are people who just are focused on colour and race and people who look a certain way. But surely these people would admit that not everyone looking like them are good people. Some are positively treacherous, and then you can remind them of, family feuds and unpleasant people in their community, or even in their anti-immigration political party. So, focusing on appearance or ethnicity is just not good enough. You could have an evil twin. So really, the best way of separating the sheep from the goats would be beliefs and values and obedience to the rules. And I've just described to you the function of a religion, the mechanism. Think of religion as a machine that has three parts. Is it three? There's a belief part, the story part. We are the people who believe that, for example, the Torah was handed to Moses on Mount Sinai, or we are the people who believe that Jesus is God, or we are the people who believe that Muhammad was a final prophet of God. Something like that. There will be a story, and if you want to be one of the gang, you have to believe it. And even if you say you believe it, you have to show that you are best at obeying the laws, or that you get to make the laws. And then we come back to monarchy, leadership, charisma. So this means that in order to keep your leadership position, you have to protect yourself with force of arms, which, well, people worked out soon enough. Or you would, if you want to do it non-violently, you'll have to find somebody else to blame when the crops fail and your hut gets blown away by storms or something. But having described how religion works, um, obviously over the years, centuries, people became better at telling stories, making up the rules, and ensuring obedience to the rules. But obviously, if you don't take the rules seriously, then you're not going to get very far. So, unfortunately, Americans, they don't take the rules very seriously, even though they have their constitution, and they can't take the founding fathers very seriously. They can't take George Washington's farewell speech very seriously, or not seriously enough to read it. Not even those who are political activists and went to a good university. They didn't want to go there. And I'm saying, Washington said, don't form political parties. It'll be the end of you, my fellow Americans. And he was right, wasn't he? So why can't you acknowledge it? And there have been political activists in America that I've been talking to, and I'm saying, look, it's time you read George Washington's farewell speech. If you won't take it from me, well, take it from your founding father. Come on, and there's just silence and avoidance, and I don't know if they've heard me or are pretending not to hear me, or maybe they're a bit scared. Okay, they're a bit scared, and I'm saying, what is even the point of talking about the stupid midterm elections? What is the point? You've just voted for Trump, and he broke his promise. I mean, you voted for this man who, well, since 2016, I guess some of you wanted him to stay for a second term. And you voted for him, and the election was stolen, and then he finally got back in. And now he's starting World War III. So you must be feeling very betrayed, mustn't you? And therefore, you must be thinking, but what can I do about it? What can I do about these lying politicians who make promises that they never intended to keep, or, well, who for some reason won't keep them because they've been prevented by the deep state, whatever. Is no one going to investigate the problem? And I'm saying, it's these bloody elections you keep having. You're basically allowing your lives to be controlled by corporate America. Because who can afford to pay to donate to the campaign funds of these hated political parties? Obviously, the business organizations. So every election, there's a turn. Money gets passed around. Obviously, the media outlets, they get their advertising, and there's a kind of bonanza of paid of ads that these political parties want to broadcast. And I'm saying, this is the problem. I know some people want to blame Jews, but surely that is the problem, isn't it? Obviously, the problem that you're just giving over control of your lives to corporate America, who don't care about you, and for some reason, everything I say falls on deaf ears. Why can't you understand that? Why can't you accept that a one-party state is working better and China is doing so well because it's got a rational political system that isn't sort of leaking support and trust? And there's something wrong with people. They don't want to. I mean, I don't mind his hostility as long as they, um, as long as I'm allowed to answer back. But all this sort of fake friendliness and then this refusal to discuss the thing that I want to discuss when there is a thing that is troubling a lot of Americans and they're obviously not happy and they just can't seem to discuss what I'm putting before them, which is a one-party theocracy. And it's not exactly so outlandish that they've never heard of it. After all, they say things like, we are one nation under God, and we trust in God. Look at our dollar bills. It says, trust in God. So, I mean, I just don't see the problem. So, as I keep saying to people, there's only one Abrahamic God, and they can't deny it. They can't say, oh no, Claire, you're wrong. There's at least 5 Abrahamic gods. So nothing they say makes sense. So it's very frustrating because it's such a simple problem. I think the 3 people, the 2 people in the chat, I think they know what I'm saying, but for some reason they can't pass it on because they are men without connections. They don't know anybody, and if they knew anybody halfway competent and with a job with something to lose, they'd be too terrified of even telling them what I'm saying because it is heresy, right? It is heresy to liberalism and the liberal order to propose a one-party state. But there's nothing undemocratic about it because in China they actually call their one-party state a dictatorship of the proletariat, a people's democratic dictatorship. And all that means is the leaders allow are the leaders are dictated to by the well-being of the people. That's what it means. And so the communists have to avoid being a dictatorship of the bourgeoisie, which is what we are in the West. It's really very simple. And it's not like, there are people here who are so enamored with the process of voting, or maybe they haven't made up their minds. They still think it's sacred to vote. And yes, it would be true if we gave up voting, because that would mean that Western civilization as we know it will have ended. But this doesn't mean, we're all going to be vaporized or anything, because when Rome fell in the year 476, it didn't mean that there was no life in Rome. It just meant that somebody else took over and taxes continued to be collected and, laws continued to be made. Things were a bit chaotic for a bit, but life carried on. It's just the political system that changed, from monarchy to republic, from secularism to theocracy. But what I have for you people is this wonderful thing called the secular theocracy, because it's from a God who has given us free will. And this idea of free will is generally acknowledged by philosophers, isn't it? It's only acknowledged by Muslims, and it's all over the Quran that we've got free will, and now verses supporting the First Amendment. So I just don't know what the problem is. So my difficulty is, well, I guess getting Tucker Carlson to interview me. I mean, there's no need for him to, fly to England and interview me, and I don't think there's much point in me, flying over there. We can just be talking like this, sitting comfortably in our homes, just talking. I just don't see what the problem is. So I don't know how much trouble he's in. And I would say to Tucker, you're going to be accused of anti-Semitism whichever way you go. And to say Israel, if you say Israel, people will just hear Jews. And if you blame Israel for anything, then, you will be accused of being an anti-Semite. And, suddenly Nick Fuentes and E. Michael Jones are no longer the biggest, baddest anti-Semites in the whole of America, but Tucker Carlson is. And do people really believe that? I don't know. It seems people must be tired of all these ridiculous accusations of anti-Semitism. What I would be very concerned about as an American is that, look, what are we going to do? We already know that we cannot trust our ruling classes to run US foreign policy. Why are things so bad? They're so bad because the military-industrial complex is the deep state. And it's not just the military-industrial complex, it's, whichever, well, it would be, multinational companies. They would benefit from globalism, and they would seek to perpetuate their prime position in being able to dictate government policy. And so people just have to say, well, no. If we give up elections, which you don't believe in anyway, because all you get are presidential candidates who break their promises. So what are we to do with the issue of trust? You will, yes, at some stage, you will have to trust your ruling classes. You might even have to trust in God if you believe in such a thing. Why should people adopt their fantasies? And, well, because mine make sense. What are people's favourite fantasies? I guess they're still happy blaming Jews. I guess they're, happy fantasizing about kicking people out. But you would have thought that our ruling classes might be getting a bit nervous, but I guess they don't listen to anyone else. They only listen to each other. And it's a terrible shame that in this global empire that is the Anglo-Saxon Empire, that there are no sensible people capable of doing anything with my proposed legal system. They're not even capable of discussing it. I wouldn't mind if people try to undermine it, but they just won't talk about it. because I suppose they are terrified that they might show themselves as to be unable to argue against it. Yes, of course, my secular Koranism makes sense. A one-party theocracy would make sense. What wouldn't? I mean, what better idea do you have? If my account were not being suppressed, if public intellectuals were honourable, then they would engage with me. But it seems to be a habit. It seems to be, what is the word? People never think it's up to them to do anything. It's always somebody else. So it's a kind of bystander apathy. But he would have thought some people might think, oh, but I have connections. I could be doing something. I could be helping save the Western world or something like that. But there's no there's no one saying that. And then you would have thought, no, that all these YouTubers, they must be desperate to produce content. So instead of, streaming live your fantasy of killing Constantine Kissin, he could have, talked to me, tried to undermine secular Koranism. But no. So everyone is stupid or mad or just malicious. They just won't do the right thing. They enjoy doing the wrong thing and pretending to be stupid, or maybe they're not pretending, they really are stupid. And they seem unable to cooperate with each other. So today I was listening to Ren Cobb, and she had this long space, and it was just all these people who don't like Jews and Muslims arguing with each other and quarrelling with each other and slandering each other, and never really getting anywhere, and never really understanding that in order for anything to change, they would need to unite under an ideology, a moral system, and that's all they have to do. And then they have to choose the best one available. And you would have thought they at least try to go about the business of trying to decide which one is the best available solution. But it never goes there. Somebody even talked about being Christian, and then some pagans popped up. It's so sad. And then I do talk to Christians, and they can't focus either. It's all, I feel so bad. I don't know what's going on. I pray for this. I pray for that. The end. So, but also morons and basically people who should be institutionalized. And quite a few of them are parents. And when I say Christianity will do you no good, American, because in America, the church is separated from the state. So it doesn't matter which church you go to on a Sunday, nothing's going to change. And it's almost unbelievable that they don't seem to understand or are pretending not to understand. And Really? Yes, it is a bit of a mystery. And oh yes, what they said, what one of them said about me was actually quite interesting, and it's to do with masculinity. So it's not just a matter of having a beard. It's an attitude of mind, and I feel I have to read it to you because it's quite well written. The man is clearly educated. And so he says, I suppose a gift of mine is reading people really well. In Claire's case, I think she's seeking fatherly authority. No, 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 I'm not. Well, yes, I guess I am. I'm seeking the leader, and I just don't see anyone. It's likely a reason she's Muslim. Well, he's got that wrong. Because I'm not. Because she perceives a strength in its rigidity in character. Her untamability, I feel, serves to highlight the lack of masculine authority in TLC, which is this online community. Um, I've tried to point this out explicitly and even model it as much as a measly comment section allows, but she still participates in that lack in a more implicit, visceral way by joining live streams. Well, this person talking about me has never joined a live stream, so he's a lurker. Um, and then he continues, TLC clearly operates as maternal containment. I think PVK is incapable of leading in a wholly masculine way, as a pastor should, either because he had an overtly toxic relationship with masculinity in his upbringing and just doesn't want to talk about it, or a very enabling one that modeled conflict avoidance over confrontation. So PVK is Paul Van der Clay, and he's got a channel, and yeah, about 24,000 or something. And yes, he is a Calvinist pastor. And he did say he would interview me, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Um, and it continues. Either way, his leadership style shows a clear affinity for the maternal, which then filters down and spreads throughout the entire community. Yes, sadly. So PVK tries to be nice and he won't say things. And I suppose that's a survival strategy. I mean, I guess if you're a pastor, you can't be mean to people, or they won't come to your church. And you have to manage all these difficult people with their difficult personalities and their mental health issues, and you mustn't push them over the edge, I suppose. It carries on. It reminds me of your conversation with Sam about him considering stepping back from TLC. Okay, this is about two men. One of them is a Unitarian Christian, and the other one is called Luke. Throughout that talk, Luke, it felt like you were only entertaining Sam's doctrinal disputes because deep down you view that drive for clarity as a sort of tantrum, in quotes, that just needs to be let out of the system. You seem to think that sort of thing just stands in the way of relationships, that if you just let Sam vent, he'll be fine and come back into the fold. Yeah, you see, so it's a bunch of Christians, and Sam, this character, who hates me, is Unitarian, and then he's having issues because he's got children, and his wife is Trinitarian, and he takes them to a Trinitarian church, And because he has a YouTube channel, he goes on about it, so everybody knows that he's a Unitarian, but he takes his children to a Trinitarian church, and he it has come to his notice that his children have been told that their father is a heretic, and this is, well, I mean, if you know any theology or history at all, Christians would burn each other at the stake for heresy, and if you denied the divinity of Jesus, you would be considered a heretic, and if you go back far enough, you could be burnt at the stake for it. So all these things, these Americans, who just have a different kind of Christianity, they just don't get it. They don't get how Christianity operated in the old world under absolute monarchs. So these Americans, they go to church and they go on about the service, and it's all really, as I keep telling them, a social club. It's a social club. It's not a political party. It's a social club. And it's not going to do you any good going on about your stupid social club that's always lowering its standards in order to get more people to join, right? So once you have a social club, you want it to be a big social club. You want it, it to be a busy social club with lots of people joining. You don't want, you don't want it to be fewer and fewer and older and stupider until, you have to close your social club down. It continues. That's classic maternal containment. You aren't guiding him toward proper understanding or growth. You're operating from an unhealthy motherly relational attachment. So this is a man talking about two other men, behaving in an effeminate way. My view is to hide from the fact that your own relationship to conviction and clarity is unhealthy and points to a deeper lack. Let me read it again. To hide from the fact that your own relationship to conviction and clarity is unhealthy and points. So I guess he's saying you don't have any convictions, that's why. I feel you attempt to dunk by flexing your mystical muscles, as both of you did in this live stream. I think it just means they're talking nonsense and mystical shit that they don't even believe in. To me, that's an obvious projection of insecurity. Yeah, when octopus says use ink to make their getaway. In the end, I believe the collective lack of masculine direction is just the same as Claire's. You are all the same. You're just afraid to admit that. Until then, you'll just go in circles with endless conversations and give into the vice of that. That's what TLC is at its very core, a distraction from accountability and a way to avoid confronting a deep spiritual lack. You are all just using each other for that. That's the tragedy. Passing the buck. And the spiritual lack is obviously the lack of conviction, right? Because that's what I've been trying to say. If you really believe in God, then it means you have to believe in the afterlife where good will be rewarded and evil punished. And if you really took the whole thing seriously, you'd think, well, how will I get to the afterlife? How will I get to the better place in the afterlife? Because, there's heaven, there's hell. Obviously, any respectable believer in God would want to go to the better place. So obviously, the question arises as to, what must we do to get to heaven if we believe in that sort of thing? So, carries on. Another thought on Claire. I recall a question circulating in TLC. Why are no Muslims here? Well, Claire is your answer. The only Muslim willing to entertain the space is a Western female convert. Well, I mean, I'm not Muslim, but, Islam has what TLC avoids: doctrinal clarity, dominant masculine authority, strong accountability. Claire comes in with that rigidity, yet retains enough Western socialization to tolerate the maternal containment. Yeah, I mean, I've known about this group years ago, and I just couldn't stand it. I had to go. And then I guess I got tired of talking to, crazy white nationalist types who don't get it either. She's a mirror and a bridge, but notice which direction she's moving. A born Muslim, particularly a man, doesn't need TLC's relational warmth. They have the community. What he demands is strength and clarity the space doesn't provide. Absence of Muslim presence isn't closed-mindedness, it's structural mismatch. So I thought that was quite a insightful analysis. What do you think, people? The Church of Jordan Peterson, yes, I mean, it's peripherally. You get a lot of Jordan Peterson fans. Oh, thank you for all those comments. I'll have a look at them all. What's a new avatar? Do you think of circumcision? I mean, it's actually a symbol of infinity with a one in the middle. Well, that's what it's meant to be. And I thought putting a bit of red in it might make it look more interesting. What do you think? Do you prefer the plain white one? Why won't Claire outline how she will turn America into a theocracy? Well, it would start with an interview on Tucker Carlson, and then you can ask me all the awkward questions. So I'd say it's not really a theocracy, it's only a secular theocracy, and we don't have to be Muslims to operate it, we just have to understand its principles, and its principles are very, very simple. You go through the Quran, you ignore all the stories, you ignore all the threats from God and His promises, and you just concentrate on the commandments that are capable of being made into legislation, and that's it. Then you get your Supreme Court justices to identify, list and number all of these verses, and then you turn it into a bill and pass it through Congress, and then it becomes US legislation. And that's how you do it. And obviously it would be nice to be able to talk to, somebody who really knows about these things, who will say, oh, but it's not as easy as you think, it's going to be this, just something like that. But, I literally am just talking to morons, right? Even if they've been to university, they're just not getting it. And maybe they're just plain dumb. So I've already explained to you how America would adopt secular Koranism. And it's in the book that I'm sure you've not read. So yes, I've explained it, and I suppose you will instantly forget. I'm not waging war on Christians. I'm inviting them to explain why they would have a problem with living under the laws of God. And, obviously I'm trying to get them to read either my book or the Quran, and they're just too much like headless chickens to do such a thing. What's your question? Do you jump on others' streams just so you can fire one up yourself and denigrate? Well, you know how YouTube works. You have your own streams, you complain about other people, they complain about you, and this is how content is produced. You can't use Christianity. What is so hard to understand? I bet living the dream is not Christian. So why would you expect people to use something that doesn't work for you? Secrets. Like what secrets? Nobody's interested in your pathetic little lives. Well, I've just spoken to Vincent today, and so now he's a fan of Laura Loomer, and he now hates Tucker Carlson. And then he was talking about moral clarity. Can you believe it? Yes, he is as confused as ever. Yes, and it is a funny old world. Oh, God's own child. God's child born. Okay, you can join. Should we try and get you a booking? Booking for what? What sort of booking? Booking of a performance? Yes, please do. How can I do this? Okay, I'm waiting for you, child. That would be nice, Skyworks. Just put a word in for me with Tucker. That would be jolly nice. It's nearly an hour and I'm feeling a little tired. Uma Duma for president. Well, at least Vincent and I are talking now. I sort of want to watch this thing on geopolitics. I think I might do that. Oh, he's here. All right. Hello, OTN.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. How are you?
Yeah, 2 seconds. So just I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right.
I'd just like to obviously I'll be real. I haven't watched the stream. I just came now. So I don't know what you've been talking about. I just want to ask your thoughts on Bibi Netanyahu's press conference yesterday and the Iran war in general, from the perspective of like the Americans and just in general.
I don't know that much about it, except that people say, oh, he's been missing, and a few videos have been coming up supposed to be him, but it's a deep fake. I mean, that's all I know.
Did you not uh, listen to his press conference yesterday?
No, I didn't.
Oh, so you don't really keep up with geopolitics.
Well, I sort of do, but there's just so much information that and I just listen to the commentators rather than you know um, have the latest, because there's a lot of noise, isn't there? And it might not even be true, and then you react, and then it's just a waste of time because it's not true. I don't know. So why did you tell me what you think?
Um, it's quite long. I think I was just gonna ask you about secular Koranism as well.
Okay.
So what I don't understand is why don't you join a party and then push this idea thing? Because you see all the parties now, they're pandering to, we're gonna restore the Christian identity. You know we're gonna be a Christian country. So why don't you join a party and actually push this through legally?
Well, what party could I join?
Probably the Green Party.
Oh no, I'd be a fish out of water. I mean, do you know what kind of people they are? They're just so. Oh, the men are terrible. I still remember the last time I spoke to one of those men. It's full of cat ladies and men who are thinking of trying to have sex with cat ladies. Maybe it's changed a bit, but I'm not going to try. And anyway, I don't believe in I don't believe in voting. It's just a waste of time. Have you explored any parties?
Well, how else are you gonna get your idea pushed through? Isn't that the whole point of
Oh, I'm talking to Americans, because I don't even think there's any point talking to anybody in this country, because anybody who's in the ruling class in this country is taking orders from Washington. And the problem at the moment is that the Americans don't know what's going on, because all these people who voted for Trump are feeling really betrayed now. So I'm saying that the conclusion they should have come to is that democracy no longer works. And if you do believe that, then you have to say we have to give up on voting and find a better system to choose our leaders. So before you arrived, I was going on about how Americans have basically surrendered their rights to corporate America, because corporate America, i.e., the business organizations, they're the ones who fund the political parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. And that's why, because he who pays a piper calls a tune. And of course, if somebody pays your campaign funds and you win, you'll have to do things their way, right? And that's how it's been happening. And then before that, I went on about George Washington's farewell speech when he warned Americans not to have political parties. And so I'm saying, it has to be a one-party state. And before you get accused of being a fascist or a Nazi or a commie, you should say it's not, the idea originated from George Washington, who told people not to have political parties, and they ignored his advice, and look where they are now. They don't know whether they're coming or going. So because of that, I can't join any political party, because I would be contradicting myself, and anyway, it wouldn't do any good.
um? Do you think So how are you gonna get this done in America?
Well, I'm saying Tucker Carlson could interview me, and then more people would talk about it, right? Or okay, somebody, well, not so big as Tucker Carlson, that would be okay. Actually, tomorrow I will be speaking on Skeptic Philosophy, which is an American YouTube channel discussing philosophy. So, well, some Americans are talking to me.
I'd just like to ask, in your ideal system, what's the penalty for adultery?
Well, it would be divorce. Um, well, it could be 100 lashes, but I think the punishment for the ending of your marriage is enough. But anyway, just chapter 24, verse 2 says, illicit sexual intercourse attracts a punishment of 100 lashes. And it need not be,
So how did
scarring you forever.
you interpret chapter 65, verse 4?
Sorry?
How did you interpret chapter 65, verse 4?
55, verse 4. Let me have a
65,
look.
65, verse 4.
Okay. "65, verse 4. Yes, it's the one on divorce. Yeah, I predicted you would go for the one about menstruation. You want me to explain why it would mention women who have not yet menstruated. So I'm saying, in the olden days, females would be sent early to the household of their betrothed. So it's like, well, you haven't started your period yet, but you will soon. So you might as well go and get used to the um, um, the ways of your husband and his household, and get yourself ready. And so off she'd go. But say she never menstruates. So if she never does, then there might be issues with her fertility, and maybe the husband might say, the husband to be might say, well, I don't really want to marry a woman who has failed to menstruate, because it'll mean that she has fertility issues, and I don't want a wife like that. So and then of course he'll want to return her, right? That's a thing. And then the verse says you have to wait 3 months. Maybe she will menstruate, and then she will be fertile, or you know you knocked her up, or somebody else did. So that, I think, is the purpose of that verse. It's not saying, oh, have sex with her even though she hasn't menstruated. I mean, that's the only explanation I can think of.
So would you not include that today? Because you said all the laws which can be made into legislation.
I didn't understand what you said, but I mean, now we don't do that sort of thing, right?
No, you said all the laws that can be made legislation. So would you not include this, or would you include it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying cancel that, but I'm saying this is my social explanation for this verse, I'm sure these days you don't, you don't get sent to your husband's, your betrothed's household like they did in the olden days. You would, probably have started your period, a few years before you think even of marrying. So, it's not a problem. It has no application now.
Yeah,
I
fair
mean,
enough.
yeah, under my system, yeah, I would be, having a government marriage bureau. So it's like, if you are of childbearing age, or a man of fighting age, and you will be encouraged. I mean, I suppose there would be um, dances and evenings for men and women to meet, to encourage them to marry and have children.
No,
That's
fair
what
enough.
I
Fair
do.
enough. Would you obviously you legalize prostitution?
Yes. I think it's very important. Nobody understands this, but I'm saying, look, if women are to give sex to men,
No, no. Do you know
then
who doesn't understand it? Obviously, the God of the Bible, who is the real God, Yahweh. In the Torah, prostitution is not like forbidden. It's not obviously promoted, but it's not forbidden.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad you know that, because prostitution
Only
is not forbidden.
only a certain type where it's linked to idolatry. Um,
Oh, temple prostitutes.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, but
I
but
guess
but
you
that's a
could,
Canaanite practice, isn't it?
yeah, I guess you could interpret that today as like Lily Phillips, those type of women.
Well, I mean, I'm saying it's important to categorize these different groups of women. So the whole idea, under a patriarchy, it's like you're female, uh, you give sex, you must either be a wife or a prostitute. There is no kind of in between. I'm the girlfriend, because that is what causes so much confusion. Because if being a girlfriend giving sex before marriage is respectable, then I guess everybody will do it, and the men will expect it, and then the men will think, well, I don't have to marry every woman I have sex with, right? And then they don't marry, and then these women get angry that nobody ever marries them, as you would expect that they would. So
Yeah, I
so
actually agree with you.
yeah, so in our society now, the women who are neither wives nor prostitutes are the biggest suppliers of sex to men. And they confuse themselves, and they confuse the men, and then men and women start hating each other. Because if you had a long string of failed relationships, you're going to hate the opposite sex, and you're not going to trust them, and you know you're going to pump them and dump them, right? But
But
I mean, if you
I, I think the Torah sold this because when you would obviously betroth a woman, you have to pay a virgin, you have to pay the dowry, and if you lay with a virgin, you either pay the dowry or you marry her, like without having her betrothed. So this solves the issue because men know that obviously they prefer to marry a virgin, so they're gonna have to pay the dowry anyway, which was like 3 to 8 months of the average wage. So they're gonna have to be stable to have that money to pay the dowry. So it would make the women and the men both control their fornication.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a kind of booking fee, really. Or if you think of the engagement ring, you know, it's like, yeah, I'd like to marry you, and here's a reservation fee. That's what it is, right? A reservation fee. I mean, it doesn't have, it depends, depending on, I guess, the quality and the status of the female. Um, yeah, I mean, it's also a way of indicating interest, right? But I mean,
Yeah,
it's not like the dowry that the female would have to pay to the male, the male side of that family, which is horrible.
but I'd like to object to um, basically what you don't like about Christianity, because I think you just got it terribly interpreted wrong. Although you do know a lot, because if you look at Europe before Christianity, there was just so much war constantly, and
Hmm.
it wasn't as you know civilized or. And then after Christianity fell in 1918, or probably in World War II, I'd say, but after it fell, then you can see now like these countries are literally on the verge of collapsing. So I don't know how you can't see that that's actually the solution.
What, more Christianity? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, proper Christianity. All, the Bible is the solution. We can just you know use the
Well,
foundations that we have, but
well, I
Christianity
do
is the
think.
answer. And that's why all the parties are pandering to it.
Well, I think okay, there is a reason because the our ruling classes sense that people are kind of wanting the old certainties, and obviously that means religion. But the problem with Christianity is that it failed the institutions it was supposed to protect, such as marriage, such as absolute monarchy. It just failed. I mean, Constantine was using Christianity to defend his divine right to rule, but Rome fell. But anyway, the Roman Catholic Church managed to sell it to all the barbarian kings of Europe. So one by one they became Catholic, and then one by one they couldn't stand it anymore. So they
But
rebelled.
you do realize that England was Christian before it had a king and before it was a country. So
I didn't hear that.
like
Sorry.
England was Christian before it had a king or before it was a country. So the kings didn't force it on the people. Like they were actually Christian. But you, for some reason, you think it was the other way around just because we're in this liberal order.
So you're saying before there was Celtic Christianity, right? And you're saying that they were already Christian. Is that what you're saying? And then they decided to become Roman Catholic. Is that what you're saying?
Before
Because I
England was
know,
a country,
hmm?
go on. I was saying before England was a country, it was already Christian.
Yeah, they had they had Celtic Christianity, right? That's the kind of Christianity you meant. Is that what you mean? It wasn't Roman Catholic.
Well, it doesn't really matter, but the fact that they joined the Catholic Church is just a good thing because just a more unified body. I don't see that as an issue. And even I can't remember the individual. I think do you know that guy is called like Bob from the Speaker's Corner?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you very well. What did you
Do,
just say?
do you know that guy? He's called Bob from Speaker's Corner.
Oh, Bob the Builder.
I don't know, but I saw his tweet and he was saying that he doesn't mind if the Church of England basically ceases to exist. He says we can just join the Catholic Church. So I think England might return to Catholicism, but either way, Christianity will be their answer.
Right. I'm just finding it very hard to hear what you're saying. Um, yeah. Well, I know Bob the Builder, and he's a kind of Christian fanatic, and he has a very loud voice, and he hates Islam. But I'm saying there was a reason why Christendom came to an end in 1918, and and that and there is a reason why people can't believe in it. I know they go to church, but that doesn't mean that they believe in it. Because everybody needs a community center, right? And I guess if you're feeling lonely or whatever, you might want to go to church. You're feeling anxious about the future, you know, or you hope to meet some nice people in your community, whatever. But you only know your religion is working properly if um, if you're prepared to defend its principles. What are Christian principles? It's certainly not marriage or patriarchy or telling the truth or speaking truth to power. It's all about expressing hatred for Jews and Muslims. But it's not about, oh, I'm going to take marriage seriously. I'm going to properly parent my offspring or anything like that. It's all about just finding a big cross to frighten Muslims or maybe hit them with it or something like that. I mean, I only prefer Islam or the Quran anyway, and in particular Sharia, because it's got rules. Muslims can't bullshit each other about oh, God says this, because it's like, well, where does it say that in the book? And I know Christians also have chapter and verses in the New Testament, but it doesn't say anything that you can put your finger on and say, oh yes, usury is forbidden or allowed, or it, it, you just don't know. And now everything has changed. So now apparently we do have an Archbishop of Canterbury who's pro-gay marriage and pro-transgenderism, and who's a feminist. So what are you going to do about that?
Well, the whole Bible is our scripture, so we'd incorporate the laws from the Torah and then the New Testament, and that's what you build on.
Well, but it's going to be hard because it doesn't come from one source, right? Only the Torah comes from God, and then the rest is written by other people. And then, of course, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and all the others. Well, they're not the same person. Well, at least the Quran says it's all from God. It's all from Allah.
I mean, I just don't know why you're fixated on that interpretation. But
Well,
the reality is, Christianity will be the answer, and that's what people are pandering to now. So why do you think they're pandering to the
yeah,
political
because it's
party?
familiar, right? And they're weaponizing Christianity because they think,
I
but
don't think so. I think people just
but
worried
the,
that.
the, the ruling classes are using, should what?
Can you repeat that? You said the
I
ruling class
can't
are
hear what you're
that
saying. Well, the ruling
is
classes
it?
are weaponizing Christianity. You're going to use it to get people, angry or frightened to do stuff, to do stupid things. They're going to use Christianity for that again.
What? How do you envision the ruling class using Christianity against the people?
Well, because Jordan Peterson and people like that, they're going to use it to say, we hate Jews, we hate Muslims, we're going to kick them out, right? That's how they're going to do it. And I'm saying, okay, you kick them out. You're still not protected against your own ruling classes, because you won't know what the rules are, because nothing is stated clearly in the New Testament.
Okay, look up 1 Corinthians 6, verse 37.
Okay, maybe you've heard that Thomas Jefferson omitted. Well, he created the Jefferson Bible, and then he omitted the Pauline epistles. So that's what he thought of Paul. So which verse in Corinthians?
1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 37.
Chapter 6,
Yeah, verse 37.
verse 37. What, lawsuits among believers? Sexual immorality. Is there 37? 1 Corinthians, what's the number again? 6?
Yeah, chapter 6.
Yeah, but it only goes up to 11.
Wait, 2 seconds.
I mean, okay, the last verse is, do you know that the wicked will not inherit the kingdom of God? Do not be deceived, neither the sexually immoral, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor male prostitutes, nor homosexual offenders, nor thieves, nor the greedy, nor drunkards, nor slanderers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God. And what some of you were, but you were washed, you were sanctified, you were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and by the Spirit of our God. You mean this one? Hello?
Yeah, my bad. It's 1 Corinthians 7, verse 36.
Okay, so it's one about marriage. If anyone thinks he's acting improperly toward the virgin he's engaged to, and if she is getting along in years and he feels he ought to marry, he should do as he wants. He is not sinning. They should get married, but the man who has settled the matter in his own mind, who is under no compulsion, but has control over his own will, and who has made up his mind not to marry the virgin, the man also does the right thing. I guess. Yeah, he can keep his options open.
So do you
Well,
not
that's a bit vague, isn't it?
do you not think that could be put into legislation? And I think,
What?
do you not think that could be put into legislation?
No, it just means that, well, I never promised.
No,
So I think it's for
that's not what
people who are already living together, right?
that's not what it's saying. I think it's just maybe your translation, but the phrase is "past the flower of her youth." So that's when, obviously, post-pubescent, that's when you're allowed to marry her. But then he's saying that if you're betrothed and you haven't related together.
You know, it's your voice. I can hardly hear it, and maybe you're also getting a bit tired of me asking you, "What did you say?" You know.
Sorry about that. I need to get a better mic.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I hope you do. It's worth the investment.
Yeah, but I just think that all your objections to Christianity can be easily answered.
You see, I'm going to have to ask you. I didn't hear that. Okay, I'm going to end this because you know, it's kind of irritating, and also I want to do other things. So thanks for coming.